Hey everybody, Michael Pavlovich here, back with another printer review, and this time it's all about the Nova3D Bene5. And I'm 70% sure that's how you pronounce that. From the Shenzhen Nova Robot Technology Company. How cool is that? Let's start out with the specs. It's got a 2K mono LCD screen with a Gen 3 crystal light source engine. Basically, nice even light distribution, no hot or weak spots, which means less variation in your part's accuracy. Granted, I didn't do any scientific testing like this, but there's some what I would consider pretty insane results when it comes to accuracy and fidelity, which we'll cover later in this video. Also, that mono screen is supposed to last about 3 times longer than your average RGB equivalent, so even better. The Bene5 also comes with a built-in Ethernet and Wi-Fi connection. I set it up on Wi-Fi really easily and was able to download the firmware direct to the machine. However, my desktop is Ethernet, this thing was on Wi-Fi. Couple different options I could have done. I could have connected it to a switch so that my Ethernet would connect to the machine to my desktop, or I could have had a desktop connected to Wi-Fi and then this thing on Wi-Fi. But instead I opted to just take the USB, copy my files, plug it in, and just do that. Now let's talk about initial setup, specifically the build platform here. It's made of a nice anodized aluminum with a very fine tooth, which you can reapply with 160 grit sandpaper if you need to. And the best part is it came calibrated out of the box and printed fine. Of course, your mileage may vary, but that was such a nice thing to have ready to go when you're excited about getting your 3D prints going. However, I did go in and mess with it after the initial test prints were done, just so I could kind of get a feel for how you level this thing. And what I really like about it is, instead of the awkward on other printers where it's like, okay, we want you to, kind of hold your hand and level it and make sure that even though you got 4 fingers on this side and a thumb on this side, get it level so that you have even pressure on all sides and then tighten the screw. I'm never able to get that right on the first try. And maybe after an enormous amount of practice, I will be able to, but with this one, you have 6 screws, which you can fine tune independently to ensure there's equal right, left, back, and front pressure on all the corners and the left and the right. Now the manual says just to use A4 printer paper. The calibration video and quick start manual says folded. I used a folded piece of printer paper and it worked fine for me. So long story short, when it comes to leveling, I really, really like this design. As far as printing goes, it's really straightforward. There's a lot of controls built in. Again, you can control it from Nova Maker, which I didn't do, or copy the files to the USB, put them on the machine, which I did do, and then all your controls going to be happening right here in this 3.5-inch screen. You can raise, lower, and calibrate the build platform. You can start, stop, and pause a print. Pausing a print will automatically raise the build platform so you can see how the print's doing. While it's printing, the task screen is going to show you your print specs, basically your layer thickness, the current layer, how much resin it's using estimated, and overall progress. It's also a super quiet printer. All you're really going to hear in the room is just a very faint hum as the Z-axis rod turns as it raises and lowers the build platform. And then of course your FEP releasing as it cures the resin and then lifts. Other than that, there is a noticeable resin odor. They have an air extraction vent on the back of the case where you can install your own activated carbon fan or just vent the fan to an outdoor area, neither of which I had set up, but simply putting some tape over it reduced the smell considerably. And of course, vent the air out, or you can put a pillowcase over it and I'm sure that would reduce the smell considerably. The resin that I used was just your standard gray Nova3D resin. It worked great. The only thing I'll call out is that if after your initial cure, if it still feels tacky and you've cured it enough, just give it a nice clean alcohol bath or spray it with some nice clean alcohol and wipe it down and it should be just fine. The last thing is the cover itself, and after using it, I really liked it. There's a lot, I love the idea that you have a cover here and you can, raise and lower it and get access to what you need to without having to take a cover off and put it somewhere and find, while you have resin and your workspace items and a bunch of stuff happening. I don't need to figure out where a cover needs to go. The only problem is the cover, it's not going to stay open. In fact, it's going to drop if you let go of it. So, and initially I thought this was kind of a mistake. I was like, oh no, did I install it incorrectly? Because that doesn't seem right. Because, obviously you're going to go in here and you need 2 hands to do your resin, get this off. The build platform's easy. So you can lift the cover up, take the build platform off, and you put the cover back down, you're good to go. Very functional, quick and easy. However, if you're doing anything with this, it says in the instructions that you need to uninstall the cover, which kind of negates the whole point of having a quick, easy, functional cover that you don't have to find a place for. So luckily for me, I have big ape hands, so I'm able to have the cover open and I can unscrew the build vat and then just do the whole resin just with one hand. Probably a little dangerous, but just realistically, how many of you are actually going to uninstall the cover every time you need to do something with the resin? Overall, I really like this machine, and even the prints that I threw at it, I'm sure it can do even more, even better as I get more comfortable with 3D printing in general and this machine specifically. Really astounding fine print work, like the mini supports that I made in Lychee. Those were like hair strands, super sharp edge details, objects that fit like a glove with those tiny arbitrary tolerances I made. So again, like I said, the performance is just superb. And also it's a damn good looking machine. Like, you know, having a functional machine that operates well is one thing, but having a really nice looking machine, just icing on the cake. And these won't be the last prints I do on this machine. Obviously, we got a lot of cool content videos, you know, the ZBrush live streams and actually creating stuff that we can feed through this thing and then print tangible assets. So how cool is that? So like I said, stop back by if you can. We got more cool stuff coming up in the future. So we got our Nova3D, and I want to call special attention to the Shenzhen Nova Robot Technology Company Limited. So that's already plus 10 points for, we got a robot company here. So let's go ahead and see what we got in the box. Instructions in English, good. We got our cord, styrofoam, and let's see if I can get this out of here nicely. There we go. It's a big boy. Got a pair of cutters, flush cutters, and then we got the FEP scraper. Then we got some filters, resin filters. We got some gloves. We got our familiar looking USB here. And this one's branded, so we know which one it goes to. Very cool. We got our usual Allen wrenches, a few replacement bolts it looks like for tightening and stuff. Ooh, we got a spray bottle for alcohol, I presume, and the other half of our cord. I gotta say, this is a pretty machine. Front panel here, what I'm assuming is the on button. And then over on this side looks like a panel, so we can access some of those guts if we need to. And then on the back here, we have Ethernet plug, USB, and our power spot. And then here is the latch for our cover to attach onto. And I'm just gonna be following the instructions here, so I'm gonna go ahead and do it like it says and say, plug in the machine, go ahead and power it on. I'm gonna go ahead and choose English, go to control, and there's a plus or a 50 up. I'm gonna go ahead and hit that. So I'm gonna go ahead and take off this build plate, and I just need to loosen these screws, and then the whole thing moves along with the screws here, so you don't need to take these things all the way out. And we got a little protective thing in here, and on the inside here, there's a protective screen on the FEP here. We're just gonna get rid of that. And then back on the build plate as well, there's another protective thing we need to peel off here. And on our screen here, we're gonna go ahead and go back out of the control menu, go in here to settings. There's an LCD screen check, and we're looking for if it displays any dark spots or any black spots. So let's take a look. I think it looks pretty good, so we'll go ahead and confirm. And before I put this on, I'm gonna do a real quick pass with these lens cloths on the FEP, just to make sure it's completely clean. And it's on the front and the back. And because it worked so well last time, I'm gonna take more of this 3-in-1 PTFE lubricant. It's a couple drops on here, and on the inside, we're gonna go ahead and apply just a very thin layer with a microfiber cloth of this lubricant. And we're supposed to install the build plate. I'm gonna go ahead and take a quick look at it. I don't know if you can tell, but it has a very, very fine tooth. And on the back here, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws holding this build plate on. All right, let's try and go in here and set up the Wi-Fi. So I'm gonna go in here to settings, go over one. You see you have network settings here, and then system info, but we're gonna stick with network settings here. I'm gonna go ahead and type in my Wi-Fi, confirm, type in the password, go ahead and hit connect. And now that I'm connected to the Wi-Fi, when I go back to general settings, you see we have a version, and we can update the version right online. So it'll go ahead and check, and then you can just say upgrade. That'll go ahead and download it over the Wi-Fi, and it'll upgrade for me. You can see with the build cover placed, you've got this latch up here. It's going to go ahead and square off with these holes in the back. You're going to have two of these M6x8 screws. And I'll go ahead and put these on. Now we've got a lid. Go ahead and tilt this back. And we've got our build platform here. You can see the max line very light back here, so I'm going to go ahead and put it in here so we can see it. So it kind of locks into place, which is nice. And we're going to go ahead and tighten these screws down. So we got this build plate. I need to go up a little bit higher, so I'm just going up 50 one more time, so up 50 twice. And this is super nice construction on these. These are really, really nice. So we're going to go ahead and do resin now. So of course, we need mask, gloves, and for this we're going to be using the Nova3D standard resin. Shake well, put this back, and again we're just going to pour until we hit that max line. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to go in here with the USB plugged in, go in here to File, we're going to do the Nova test, and we're going to go ahead and hit play. LCD and resin tank's good to go. We're going to hit confirm, and we're going to let that go. All right, you can see that it finished in 2 hours and 43 minutes. And of course, since we're back into resin mode, masks, gloves, eye protection, and I'm doing an experiment with my wash and cure. So we're going to go old school, and we're going to go pickle tray and 99% alcohol. And I'm not exactly sure what the Nova thing is, but it looks like their logo. So let's go ahead and tilt this back here. We'll go ahead and unscrew the build plate and have your scraper ready to go. Not included, just you need a metal scraper. I did want to mention I got a pair of Reptor scrapers. Those are just, they're super thin and they can get underneath the resin. So I had a lot better luck with those. You'll see those in later on in this video actually, when we get to the Apinator, getting underneath the resin, and then you get it under and then you just wiggle. You wiggle it across, you wiggle it across. So you're gonna see me break this thing. But I've learned since then a little bit more appropriate ways to deal with getting the resin off the build plate. Throw it right into the alcohol bath. We got this handy dandy little lifter. Look at that. Very nice. We haven't cured it yet, so it's still, you know, I could probably crush it, but we'll go ahead and throw this in the cure station. Now, we didn't wash in the wash station, but we can cure in the cure station. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and take our 3D print, and we're gonna give it maybe 2 minutes and start it. Alrighty, you zoom in here. Super fine detail work on this. I'm gonna go ahead and print out the Octopus now. I'm just gonna tilt the hood back and pop this build plate back on, tighten it back up, go back into File. We've already printed out the Nova test. Let's go ahead into the Octopus, hit play to print it, check the LCD screen in the resin tank, go ahead and hit confirm. All right, this is a significantly shorter print. This is 1 hour and 14 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab our pickle bath, our pickle tray bath here. I'm gonna tilt the cover back here. I'm gonna unscrew the build plate, pop that off real quick. And we got a cool little octopus here. So the first thing I'm gonna do is scrape him off. There we go, so kind of getting in there and then just boop. I'm gonna take our octopus here, drop him in. And we got the little handle lift out. Go ahead and pop him out. I'm gonna let him dry on a paper towel. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and cure this guy. And you can see he's got these little hinges on here. So he's got these little floppy legs. So let's go ahead and on this. And I'm also really impressed at this. You can see the different levels here, even closer. Let me see how close I can get with my camera here. just an insane amount of detail. So I'm really excited to take this to the ringer and see what kind of results we can get with this thing. All right, we're gonna go ahead and clean out the resin on the bat, and there's a couple good reasons to do this. If you ever have a failed print, what can happen is you can have some sometimes floating resin in there, or resin built up on the FEP film that's in there. So the next time you go to print and that build plate lowers down, what it could do is it could actually destroy or ruin or kind of make the FEP not great. It can like press little chunks down in the FEP and ruin your FEP, but the FEP can be replaced. What it could do that's even worse is it can puncture the FEP and affect the LCD screen that's in there, and it can give you dead pixels or destroy the LCD screen. Yeah, that can also be replaced, but you know, ideally you'd rather not have that happen, right? So we're gonna go ahead and switch, go ahead and filter this resin back out. So what you're gonna need is, first of all, gloves, goggles, all your mask, all your safety gear, you need to have that on. And then we've got our resin here. So we're gonna go ahead and get that ready. And then we're gonna have our filter that came with it. So we're gonna put this into the resin. And if you wanna play it extra safe, you can also have a funnel ready to go. So you can go the filter in the funnel and then both of these in here. And the reason I have a floppy funnel, I mean, I do have harder funnels as well, but these are kind of a little bit more difficult to clean or just dip into a big alcohol bath. So having a bendy one can sometimes, you can just take this and just shove it right into the alcohol bath. Now, the only reason I have the thing on is because I do want to go in here to settings, and you're going to see there is a clean vat option. And I'm just going to jump in here again and say I didn't end up using this, but it is available to you if you do need it. It'll catch the little flakes and then bake them to a layer you can peel out, I suppose. What I wanted to do was actually take a look at the FEP and see what kind of condition it was in. So I did, drain the resin out of there and then went through and cleaned the FEP as opposed to using this setting. But, feel free to use that setting, of course. And in fact, I'm just going to go ahead and power this down. Go ahead and say power off. So let's go ahead and get this resin out. And you're going to see there's a notch in the back corner of that resin tank. So I'm going to be pouring out of that corner into my resin. So again, we're filtering the resin as we pour it in so that whatever goes back in, if there is any chunks that happen to be in there, they'll be gotten rid of. And another thing I should have told you to grab is you can grab the FEP scraper here, or any rubber spatula really, and just kind of go through. And it looks like we didn't have any problems. On the FEP itself, there's only two things I want to touch the FEP, and that's a microfiber cloth and or one of these lens cloths. So I've already cleaned off everything with alcohol with a paper towel, except for the FEP itself. I got the, the bulk of it, but I'm gonna go back through with my lens cloths here that have alcohol in them. And these are for cleaning off lenses, so they should be safe with the FEP. And the FEP, you really don't want to cloud up or, make sure that it's doesn't have anything on there, because that's your window to the LCD screen. And if your FEP isn't clean, then it's bad news. You want this as clean and as clear and as stress-free as possible. So I'm going to go through here and clean off the rest of this. And then of course, after cleaning the FEP, I like to only use a microfiber cloth. Go ahead and put in a little of the PTFE lubricant and then just wipe down the inside bottom with a very thin layer. Alrighty, so we're nice and clean now. Again, I want that max fill line towards the back. So I'm gonna go ahead and place it back on here. Tighten my knobs back in, and we're ready for another print. All I gotta do is put the resin in there and we're good to go. Now, if you want to see the making of this gorilla skull, go to the Lychee series on my YouTube channel. We set it all up there, and then for the export to the native CWS file that the Nova3D Bene5 requires, and then copy that to the thumb drive, plug it in, go to the file menu, hit play on your file, and it'll print it out. All right, our 3D print is done. I've got my alcohol bath right here, so we're gonna go ahead and take that and put it in here with the base. So I'm gonna go ahead and open these up, and of course masks and gloves, you know the drill by now. And we'll go ahead and unlock or unscrew the build plate here, pop this off, and I'm going to take the whole thing and put it right down onto a little basket here. So now for the cure, we would need the dome, but for the wash, I don't think you need it. It's already sealed up. We've got it clicked down. So I'm going to make sure this is set to wash. We'll go ahead and give it a 3-minute wash. Alrighty. So let's go ahead and scrape it off the build plate here. And these scrapers I saw Tomas from the Poly Workshop using, so I went ahead and grabbed a pair. They came in a pair, so big long one, and I think this one will be fine for the size we're working at. So basically I'm just kind of wiggling underneath all the way around. All right, I'm gonna put the build plate back in the wash here. And honestly, I don't remember which cutters came with the printer, but you should have a pair of cutters here that you can go through and you can start removing your thicker supports. And this is actually a really good time to talk about. So remember, your print is, here's the build plate. So when you're doing your slicing and stuff, it's like up like this and you're trying to figure out what supports and you're looking underneath. And then you can go into the preview where this is your build plate and it does this bottom layer for more seconds. So it really cures and hardens this resin, creates a really good solid support. And then all these little supports print out and support these other areas. And if they're not thick enough or there's not enough of them, as this thing is printing out, something with a really broad surface area like this can get stuck, and then they'll snap off from the supports, and then this thing will keep moving up and down, and then this thing will be stuck to your FEP because again, the supports weren't thick enough or there weren't enough of them. These are all light supports. These are kind of a heavy medium, and I didn't even change the orientation of the skull, which also could have helped if I would have tilted the head a little bit. This hollowed out area, this might have reduced the profile of this big broad area that got printed. So a couple ways I could have fixed that. And now that I've already got the supports off, I might consider, you know, breaking off your supports in like a strainer or a bowl like this so that you can catch all the things flying around. And then also what might be useful is these type of grabbers, so you can get in there with your needle nose pliers and get into any areas where you need to, because you don't want to mark up your brand new 3D print. Oops. And of course, you know, actual tweezers. I'm gonna do one last, not a full bath or anything like that, but just one last little shake. And I'm gonna let these dry before I put them into the cure. Alrighty, I think that did the job. All right, we're gonna be printing out the Apinator or the Terminator ape skull version of this. And the making of this and how I prepared it is all gonna be on another video on my YouTube channel. I didn't wanna put it in the middle of this video because that'd really extend the length. But again, you can go back to my channel to check that out. So here we are, time lapse of printing out the Apinator, the Terminator ape skull on the Bene5. All right, so we've got our skull printed out. I've done a couple prints and I'll get more into detail in the video here, but I need to just get in on you know, and like I said, it picked up all kinds of detail on the face, on the inside of the eye here. Let me get it towards the light, baby. All right, I apologize in advance because this is going to take some precision movement from me because these things I'm talking about are so small. But you can see right in here is where I put my mini supports, and then same thing on this side. I forgot I had a test print that I did that still had the mini supports on there. So again, just kind of going back to like how fine-tuned and how well calibrated this machine is. You know, really impressive stuff. So I'm gonna see if I can't get closer so you can actually see like the span of 4 mini supports that I did. And you can see right there in the middle of your screen, but right there you can see a span of 4 mini supports right in there. And you can also see the scale of those supports next to my fingernail here. So we're talking like when we're talking about those mini supports we're putting in to kind of catch those hard edges, probably, you know, those islands may or may not have actually been needed. But if you do need them, the ability to print that small and that finely, I mean, look at that. Oh my goodness. Totally doable on this machine. And we're talking like hair fibers here. And we'll flip this around here. But again, just this inset area that we booleaned out so we get to get a nice clean print off a shape like this. And those super tiny notches that go in there. And again, I haven't even cleaned the supports out of there, but I'm just gonna push right on past them. It fits in there like a glove, you know? So even though I was just doing silly tolerances that weren't based on any real measurement, I wasn't like looking at like quarter or half millimeters. I just did a slight inflate and it was able to print out this very precisely, leave my Boolean gap, very precise gap in there. And boy, it just fits perfectly.